Good morning. You guys are a quiet bunch this morning. Usually you're a little bit more rowdy, but so today is our last time. We're finishing Joseph up today. I was supposed to do it last week, so we went a week further, but today we are definitely wrapping it up, and it's sad because I hope that you guys got as much as I did just digging into Joseph's life. It's one of the best stories. It's just an incredible story because, like pretty much all of the Old Testament, a lot of people don't like to read the Old Testament. You know, you have the Old Testament, the New Testament. New Testament's easier reading. It's when Jesus came, you know, a lot of the different rules were different. He introduced grace, he introduced the cross, and it's just an easier read. That's because a lot of the times, and I spent most of my life, even though I grew up in church, the Old Testament to me was just like, it was a hard read. But when you start looking at the Old Testament, really what it is it is a picture of Jesus, of what was going to come. It was a prophetic picture of our Redeemer. All through, we're in Genesis, you go through Exodus, you go on and on and on. It is constantly a pattern of God pursuing and redeeming his people. And that's what Joseph, that's what we're going to be talking about is redemption today. If you sum the story of Joseph up that we've been in for about 7 weeks, it's about redemption. It's about Jesus. And we are going to end today and start our new series. I hope that you guys, what I was going to do is it was a toss-up between starting a one-on-one class or a 102, or sometimes we call it UIO. Some of you guys have been through those courses. But since we're small enough that I'm going to actually preach those classes on Sundays. So it's going to be called Roots, Why We Believe, What We Believe. Because if I asked a lot of you, why do you go to a Vineyard? And if you moved to, Ohio, would you go to a Vineyard? And then why? Why? And a lot of you would give me probably good, decent answers. But most of us don't know why we are different than a lot of other types of churches. So we're going to go over that, why we're the Vineyard, what we believe, what are our core values, what are our non-negotiables. We're going to talk about the kingdom, we're going to talk about prayer, we're going to talk about healing. And I got to tell this story. We went away on a girls' trip. Is my sister here? Oh, okay. Oh, all right. So we went away. It was a conference we go to every year. We only go for 2 days. It's right up in Fort Lauderdale. So we go away, and we don't attend the conference. One of our best friends we grew up with, she gets a free, really nice room. So we just go up there and use all the amenities, and she goes to the conference, and we hang out. So we go to breakfast one morning, and, we're sitting there at breakfast, and it's a buffet, so we're there for 4 hours, and our waitress remembered us from last year. I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing, because it was me and both my sisters, and we're pretty loud and we like to laugh, so I think it was a good thing. So she remembered us. Well, she came over to the table to just check up on us, and I'm going to tell this part of this. This is, okay, wait, no, I'll save it. All right, so she comes to the table, and I said, hey, is your left knee hurting? And she's like, her eyes get huge. She's like, yeah. And she was, she's Hispanic, and she was like, yes. And she didn't even know what to do. She just said yes. And I said, would you mind? If it's okay, could I just pray for your knee real quick? And so she came over to the table, and my sisters and I, we just laid a hand and just prayed, nothing crazy. You don't got to use big words. We just invited the Holy Spirit and just asked for his healing to come. And we just prayed for the ligaments to be restored. And so she she went away. Now, here's the part where I'm going to confess something, because I don't know if this was bad or what, but so a few minutes before she had come over to the table, I saw her with her coworker, and she was sitting down, and she was holding her left knee like really bad. Should I have told her I saw that happen? I don't think so. It increased her faith so much. I mean, if she would have asked me, I wouldn't have lied about it, but it was such a faith increaser. Her eyes were like, how did you know? My sisters even, I did tell them, because they were their back was to it. And so they were just kind of like, and not that I can't get prophetic words, but usually not when I'm on vacation, I'm checked out. So they were in awe and shock. I let it sit there for a little bit, and then guilt just cripples me. So I ended up telling them. And so we get back to our room. This is so sweet. We get back to our room, and she sends a really nice bottle of like champagne, all these fruits, these cheeses that looked like mold and mildew, but apparently they were like expensive, and I couldn't stomach eating it. It looked like a pile of mold. And so anyway, it was just really sweet. I don't know why I told that story of healing. We're going to talk about that. That's one of the biggest reasons why we are a kingdom church. We believe in the now and the not yet. So we're going to spend weeks on that stuff. But now we got to finish up with Joseph. Who remembers last week where we left off last week? Oh, wow. You guys are just smart. The family came to town. Yep. Why did they get to settle? Does anybody remember? Gosh. Okay, so Joseph stood in the gap. Remember, we talked about friendships, standing in the gap. What am I going to do with you guys? So we talked about Joseph. They didn't deserve it, but he stood in the gap for them. He asked Pharaoh to find favor on them. Pharaoh said, yes, they can have whatever they want. And so then we take a kind of a turn, and we knew Jacob, which was Joseph's father, was getting ill, and he ends up passing away. Joseph is devastated. He weeps. He mourns. They go through 70 days of mourning. 70 days of mourning. Sometimes I don't think that we grieve enough over things. I think that we're expected to just get back out there. I don't think we allow ourselves sometimes to really grieve over things. I think one of the reasons Joseph stayed so merciful and forgiving and just so raw, and so he was in touch with his emotions, I think because he allowed himself to have emotions. And emotions are labeled as some bad thing, but emotions, all through here you see Joseph's emotions. And emotions are not a bad thing. They're actually what keeps us in touch. I don't think you can have a really intimate relationship with God without emotions. They're part of who we are. And so Joseph, he's mourning over his father. I think his brothers are mourning too, but you got to remember, Joseph spent all these years away from his dad when his brothers sold him into slavery. So while his brothers were hanging out with Pops, he was off being a slave and then being imprisoned. And then, he's had a rough life, and he had to do most of it without his dad. And this isn't some deadbeat dad. This is a great dad. He wasn't perfect. None of ours are. But he towed the line. He passed down to the next generation faith. We talked about that's the only thing that can pierce through all this corruptness, everything going on. Nothing scares God. Faith is one of the only thing that can pierce through and break curses of addiction, of whatever, fill in the blank. Faith is all we have. It's the hope that we hold on to, like we sung in the song. So his father passed faith down to him. There's no greater thing you can give your kids. No greater thing. You can give them all the money in the world. You can give them all the cars, all the houses, all the knowledge. But I'm telling you what, nothing surpasses is faith. It will radically change the rest of their lives. And if they're astray from it right now, I can assure you that God is faithful to pursue after them until they come back home. He's all about the prodigal son. I was a prodigal kid. He loves the prodigal son. He won't give up. So if you're following along, we're going to be in Genesis chapter 50, and we're going to jump in verse 15. This is after they bury the father. And the brothers, all his brothers, they start letting fear take over them again. So we're going to jump in chapter 50, verse 15. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, what if? That's what fear is. If you can tell, if you're a creative and imagination is one of your gifts, you're probably struggle with fear quite a bit. Because it takes an imagination to have fear. It takes the what ifs, worst case scenarios, to be a person consumed of fear. And his brothers they're like, what if now that dad's gone? What if that was the only reason Joseph wasn't paying us back for all the wrong things we did to him? Verse 16. So they sent word to Joseph saying, they sent a message to Joseph. Your father left these instructions before he died. They've debated whether this is a true statement or not. The bottom line is nobody can prove it. Nobody knows, none of us know, no theologians, nobody can prove that this statement is true, that the father really did say this to his brothers. They could have been making this up. We don't know. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt and just say maybe they had a conversation with dad about this. So verse 17, this is what you are to say to Joseph. I ask you to forgive your brothers the sins and the wrongs they committed in treating you so badly. Remember, these are the same dudes that threw him in a pit to die and then said, well, let's not kill him, let's sell him, and sold him into slavery. These are the same brothers. Now, please forgive the sins of the servants of the God of your father. When their message came to him, circle this in your Bible, Joseph wept. Joseph wept. Why would Joseph weep? I thought a lot about that. I'm sure there's lots of different reasons. But I think Joseph, if he wasn't able to weep, I don't think he would have been in a very good place in his heart. I got to remember, he just lost his dad. Now his brothers, who he's already had this conversation with, he's already told them, I have forgiven you. What you meant for harm, God used for good. It's under the blood. But one of the hardest things, we talked a little bit about this last week, is being able to forgive ourselves. We can even agree that God can forgive us. We agree, yeah, God forgives me for that. But really embracing that forgiveness into your own heart is super difficult. Guilt riddles us. It cripples us. It's like quicksand. If you don't get out of it, it will consume every part of you. Anybody ever been in quicksand? Does it really exist? That's what I want to know. Is it a movie thing or does quicksand? I've never met anyone who's seen it. I've never seen it. I think it's a myth. Is it a myth, Colin? Yeah, it's a myth. Thank you. I knew it. Colin knows everything. So I knew it. But it's like quicksand. It will grip and consume you. Here's your first point, though. God never creates the harm, but always brings the hope. God never creates the harm, but he always brings the hope. You have to let him bring the hope, though. You can't provide hope for yourself. This is verse 18. His brothers then came. They threw themselves down before him. We're your slaves. We're indebted to you. Verse 19. But Joseph said to them, don't be afraid. Am I God? Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm, but God intended for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then don't be afraid. I'll provide for you and your children. This is what God does. We talk about our slogan is traded at the Naples Vineyard, because this is your second point, is God will turn your mess into a message for others. God will turn your mess into a message for others. That's what he did with the brothers. That's what he did with Joseph. That's what he did with Jacob. That's what he did with Isaac. That's what he did with Abraham. That's what he did with Moses. That's what he did with David. I mean, on and on and on. He took the mess we're surrounded with, and he turned it into a message for others. A message of redemption, of hope, of second chances. See, this is what I love about Joseph. This is one of the similarities of Jesus. Is Jesus is all about reassuring you. Joseph had been here, done that with this conversation. He's already had this conversation. To me, I'd be offended if we're revisiting that. I already told you I forgive you. Why are you bringing this back up? Why do you think I'm a liar? Is that what you're saying? Are you calling me a liar? Joseph has every right to be like, dude, let's move on.com. Every right. But he's so full of grace. They say on his tombstone, it would read, a man of forgiveness and integrity. And he's so full of grace. He doesn't have a hard drill to them. He says, again, remember what you meant for harm? He addresses the fact that it hurt. It hurt me. But man, what you meant for harm, God used for his glory. He's redeemed us. We have provision. We got food. We got money. We have a good setup. We have a good house now. Like, his blessings are all in front of us. Can't you see his blessings? Oh, that's what fear and guilt does to us. It blinds us of the very things that are sitting in front of us. It's the mentality of, we can't possibly deserve this. They're still wrestling with that. You guys do it too. I do it. I know you do it. You wrestle with whether you deserve God's blessings. And partly because for me, when you grow up Baptist, we grew up originally, we were Baptist, and everything was about like giving. Yeah, you can have a nice car, you can have a nice this, you can wear makeup, you can do this, you can do this. And it was like if you had anything good, you should feel guilty about it and give it. That's so backwards. God is the very person that put Joseph next, Pharaoh, King of Kings, President of Presidents. He's Pharaoh's right-hand dude. He can have anything he wants. He's got a great house. He's got everything, soldiers at his beck and call. He is blessed. And God gave him those blessings. This is in our life. Look, don't ever feel bad about getting good things. I remember when we bought the house out here in Naples, I just sat on my back porch, and it's really nice because it's our first pool house, and we're on this, they call it a little lake. It's a man-made little lake, but it's water. So I was sitting on my porch, and it was the first week we had just painted everything, and I sat there, and I started like just weeping. And I was just newly moving into it. I was like, when am I going to lose this, God? When am I don't even want to enjoy it because I don't want to feel the pain of when I lose this. And I remember hearing God's voice going, you got to learn that I love you. And it makes my heart joyful to see you provided for. It's not a bad thing. Now you better make sure your finances are in check, and you better make sure you're tithing. You better make sure you're doing your part to show God all of it's yours. But when that part's done, man, the blessings of God are amazing. And Joseph's like, man, you guys just get over this hurdle of guilt and come and taste and enjoy all this stuff we have, the freedom. This is your third point. Is a kingdom legacy is a life of redemption. It's not leaving something to people. It's leaving something in people. That's really what a legacy is. It's not the stuff you leave people. It's the stuff you leave in people that you'll be remembered by. And I just wanted us to think about this for a little bit. If we're not all promised, people, they get all offended if you say like a little bad word in church. But you know what the Christian cuss words are? You want me to tell them? You want me to say them out loud? Okay, you asked for it. Here's the Christian cuss words. Death, you're going to die. Hell is real. Homosexuality. Sinning, a sinner. I know I'm forgetting there's a lot of them. Satan is real. Those are words that put us all in awkward, sometimes fetal positions. Those are the big things. The real God will, I hope that I never stop. I wanted this message. I know it's like it's a not all funny, humorous message, but I wanted to turn this corner because I want to address death a little bit. Because we don't like to talk about it. Back in the day, this was a long time ago, and they're coming back. Hope Hospice is slightly bringing this back, but back in the day when someone were to pass away, they would have the whole entire room, no matter whether it was a disease or an infection or whatever it was, their entire family would be surrounding them. Entire family. I mean, just whatever. Kids are fighting with each other on the side. Someone's playing chess. Someone's playing cards. The room is packed with family. And they were talking about how we have lost that over time. Take away a couple people, put a rule, Now you're in a hospital, you can only have 3 people, 2 people, and slowly our culture started isolating so that when people died, they pretty much died alone. Sometimes people, when they're in the hospitals, they're dying alone. And that made me really sad. And I thought about, if I had 24 hours to live, what would I do with that? My husband and I were talking about this. We don't like to have conversations. Don't talk about it. It's the reality. We're all gonna die. It better be important. You better know hell's real. It shouldn't rule your life. You shouldn't follow God because it's real. But you better know it's real. You better have faith. know Jesus. Because it's going to come. And sometimes it comes super fast and we're not expecting it. And sometimes we have time to prepare. I don't know what's worse. But we're all going to face it. And I think we need to know that we are light. It's the same thing of what Satan, what the devil meant for harm. He came to rob, steal, and destroy us. He meant for death. God uses for good his glory. He redeemed us so we wouldn't have to fear that. We know where we stand. We know where we're going. Jesus died on the cross. He conquered death. He rose the third day to say, you know what, enemy? You ain't got nothing. I just took the sting out of your biggest weapon, and that's death. And Joseph, he has this conversation with his brothers, and he's begging them to turn the corner with him. And then shortly after that, I think he lives to 110 years old, give or take. And he passes away. But he left us a legacy. He left us a whole book. We spent 7 weeks, and we could have spent all year on his life. 7 weeks about one dude and his legacy. About, you think you got it bad? You think you got it rough? He had it rough. And he stuck with God through all time. When he got falsely accused for sleeping with the dude's wife, all of us would have been in uproar. How dare you? We would have been all about our rights. Our right this, our rights for that. Now he was like, God, I'm going to pursue you and follow you. If that leads me to prison, then that's where I'm going to be. So we're all going to. What do you want? What do you want your legacy to be? If I asked you, what do you want? If I said, Chad was a man who blank. Sarah was a woman who blank. What would you want your kids to say? Yeah, that's the easy part. How do you get to that? You want to say, Kristy was a woman of honesty. I am only going to get that. You know how I'm going to get that? How do you think? Nope. Knew you were going to say that. Remember, the only right answer is my answer. That is true, of course, being honest. But even more than that, even greater than that, because you are not going to be honest all the time, is the part where you admit that you lied and you tell the truth and you humility. You want to be a man of integrity? You want to be a faithful man? Guess what? You're not always going to be faithful. And maybe you have little levels that you won't pass, but those are still little levels. So you want to be a faithful man. Then when you screw up, you own it, you admit it, and you repent. You want to be a woman or a mom. You want to be known as a mom that had compassion. Man, you better learn the words, I'm sorry. I should have loved better. I should have handled that better. I should have done this. Do you forgive me? You better learn that if you want to be a mom known for your mercy or your compassion. See, it's not about being that best thing. That's just rules. We can strive for that, whatever it is. strive for it by all means. But when you fall short, because we all fall short, what do you do with that? That defines your legacy. That defines your character. That defines who you really are. What you do with your bitterness and your unforgiveness and your hurt and your guilt. What do you do with those things when you mess up? Because like your point two is God, if you let him, because that's the story. He wants to be our redeemer. He's all about redemption. He will take your mess and turn it into a message. That's how you get to wear a legacy. So we're going to take communion in a little bit. But I think before that, I want to do this before. We're going to just take a couple minutes. Zach, if you want to grab the pens and the notes back there on the table. Anybody who doesn't have a pen, raise your hand, because you're going to need a pen, or I'm just going to sit and stare at you. Over here. A pen and keep your hand up real quick. Zach's going to get it to you. You're pretty slow for a basketball coach there, buddy. Just saying. Just saying. It's his birthday. I can't give him. Listen, this is so crazy. Let me just tell you this. First of all, is Danielle's not in here? All right. Just don't tell her I told you this. But listen, this is how she remembers her husband's birthday, is that it falls on John's birthday. I'm just kidding. Eddie made that up. I just thought that was so funny. But yeah, how crazy is it? John, it's John and Zach's birthday today. How old are you guys? If you were women, I wouldn't ask, but. You're not 33. Are you? You're old, dude. I thought you were like in your 20s. You were 15, yeah. That's his mom. All right, so this is what I want us to do together. I need one too. All right, everyone got a pen? All right. No? One more up front. All right. It would have been really cool if I would have done this in the shape of a tombstone and done this little thing. I always get creative ideas after. All right, so I want us to take a second. And Eddie's going to play some light music before we do communion. And I want you to write down no more than 2 or 3. Some of you, one is going to be hard, but you overachievers can list 2 or 3. But I want you to really, honestly, really just take a second to think about it. If you were going to die tomorrow, and you knew that, what would you want to be known for? What would you want your legacy? What word or words would you want to describe you? I hope that somehow it lines up with God's kingdom for your sake, being I'm known for the funny guy, or I'm known for the sarcastic girl. God, if that's what your tombstone reads, is that what you're living for? Let's go a little deeper. What do you want? She was known as blanc. He was known to have blanc. So, Eddie, go ahead and play that lightly, and then let's just take a second. I'm going to pray, and then we're going to just take a minute or two and write down. And listen, I know some of you young bucks in here. No, you got a lot of more time to get this thing down. Some of us, we got to work really hard to become these things that we're going to write down, because we spent so many years doing it the wrong way. So for you youngins, when you get that word, start today. Little bits. I say, what does being a Christian looks like? What does being a Christian look like? It's this, just becoming a little bit, a mustard seed, a little bit more like Jesus every day. That's it. If you could just get, each day, a little bit more like Jesus. So come, Holy Spirit. Lord, we just welcome you. Lord, I know we don't like to think and talk about death. Lord, it's part of what we're going to have to go through. And if there's someone in here who's wavering where they stand with you, Lord, or where will I go after death? Just give them courage to just surrender. Say, I want to know. I want to know where I stand. I need that forgiveness, that hope, that light you were talking about. I want a piece of that. And just tell him right now, Jesus, come into my heart. I want to know you better. I want to trade my mess and my messes to come for your grace. Lord, give us courage to call things out with your help of what do we really want to be known for. Not what we tell people, what people watch and see out of us. And give us courage to name it. And then give us wisdom on how to become more like that.